Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's start out with some jury charge. Ready? Here we go. The fifth element of Ms. Bovang's defamation claim is that the defendant you are considering acted negligently in publishing the statement. To establish negligence, a plaintiff must prove that when the defendant published the statement, the defendant failed to use reasonable care under the circumstances to verify its accuracy. If you find that Ms. Bovang has proved that the defendant you are considering acted negligently in publishing a statement, then you must proceed to consider the other elements of Ms. Bovang's defamation claim with respect to that statement. If you find that Ms. Bovang has failed to prove that the defendant was negligent in publishing that statement, then you will not proceed further with respect to that statement, and you will find the defendants with respect to that statement. The sixth element of Ms. Bovang's defamation claim is that the statement proximately caused actual harm to her, meaning that she suffered damages such as personal humiliation, mental anguish, and suffering, or damage to her reputation and standing in the community. If you find that Ms. Bovang suffered damages such as personal humiliation, mental anguish, and suffering, or damage to her reputation or standing in the community as a result of the statement, and that she proved the five other elements of her defamation claim by a preponderance of the evidence, you will find for Ms. Bovang on her defamation claim with respect to that statement. If you find that Ms. Bovang has failed to prove all six elements of her defamation claim with respect to a statement, then you will find for defendants with respect to that statement. If you find that Ms. Bovang has proven one or more of her claims with respect to one or more of the defendants, then you will go on to determine the damages to which Ms. Bovang is entitled. The mere fact that I am instructing you on how to go about awarding damages does not mean, of course, that I have any opinion on whether any defendant should be held liable in this case. I have no opinion one way or the other. It is your responsibility to decide whether there is liability, and I am instructing you about damages only so that you will have guidance in the event that you decide that Ms. Bovang has proven one or more of her claims as to one or more of the defendants. If you find that Ms. Bovang has proved liability according to the standards I have explained, there are two types of damages you may consider. These are called compensatory damages and punitive damages. The first category of damages is compensatory damages. If you find for plaintiff with respect to any of her claims, then you must award her the sum that you find from the preponderance of the evidence will fairly and justly compensate her for any damages you find she has sustained and is reasonably certain to sustain in the future as a direct result or as a reasonably foreseeable consequence of a defendant's conduct. The damages that you award must be fair and reasonable, neither inadequate nor excessive. You should not award compensatory damages for speculative injuries, but only for those injuries that plaintiff has actually suffered or can reasonably be expected to suffer. It is plaintiff's burden to prove the amount of her damages and to prove that the damages were caused by a defendant's actions. Your determination of damages must not be based on speculation or guesswork. You may not award compensatory damages more than once for the same injury. For example, where a plaintiff prevails on two claims and establishes that he or she is entitled to $100 in compensatory damages for that injury, that plaintiff is not entitled to $100 in compensatory damages on each claim. A plaintiff is only entitled to be made whole again, not to be made more than whole. Of course, where different injuries are attributed 2. The separate claims. A plaintiff is entitled to be compensated fully for all the injuries. Right, we will stop there. Carry on with this jury charge later. And now let's try some dictation from this opening statement. Ready? Again, this is an opening statement. Here we go. Like you've already heard, we're here about an automobile collision that happened on March 13th, 2006. There are 3 vehicles that have roles in what happened that day. As Mr. Stevenson just told you, one of them is a Baltimore Tank Lines fuel tanker trailer combo. The second vehicle is driven by Ms. Young, who also is a defendant today. That was a Dodge Caravan minivan. And the last vehicle is my client, Mr. Irvin's vehicle, which was a Honda Accord Coupe. And on the day in question, these vehicles were traveling in the vicinity of what I'm showing you as for demonstration is Mattawoman Beantown Road, approaching its intersection with Leonardtown Road. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my client, Mr. Irvin. He's married, has 3 kids. He's been employed since 1999 by Aeromark Corporation. What he does for them is he's an environmental services manager. He works in hospitals. Aeromark's a contractor. They hire Aeromark to run some of their operations. And what Mr. Irvin does is he supervises the environmental services crew there, which is the folks they keep that whole hospital clean, everywhere from the clinical places, the ER, the operating rooms, all the way to everything that they have there. So part of his job is supervising those folks and making sure they do what they're supposed to do. Like probably a lot of folks in Charles County, Mr. Irvin also has some military experience. He is a member of the Navy Reserve. At various times he's been on active duty. He served overseas. And what he's gonna tell you is that on the day that this happened, March 13th, he had gone to Andrews Air Force Base because, as most people familiar with the military know, you have certain physical training or PT requirements to make sure that you're physically able to carry out your duties, and part of that means that you have to exercise to be able to meet the requirements. What Mr. Irvin liked to do is he liked to ride his bike. So what he would do is on days that he was gonna do that, he'd drive up to Andrews and ride his 24-speed Greg LeMond bike around the entire perimeter of the base, which is about 10 miles. And he had, you'll hear him tell you that he had done that on this day. He had gotten up in the morning, as he had to work later in the afternoon, but not that time. He had gone to Andrews and he had done his exercise and he was on his way back. At the time, he'll tell you where he lived at the time, but what you will hear is that in order for him to get home, he had to take Mattawoman Beantown Road down to where it intersects with Leonardtown Road, and that Mr. Irvin's gonna tell you that he had to make a left, and then to get to his house, he had to make more or less an immediate right after he made that left-hand turn. And what else Mr. Irvin's gonna tell you is that on that day there were some other vehicles in the vicinity. One of them was a Baltimore Tank Lines fuel tanker truck, just like any kind of tractor-trailer combo that you're used to. It's going to have a tractor at the front and then that trailer that it pulls. And in this case, it's a tanker trailer. Mr. Irvin recognizes it as a Baltimore Tank Lines vehicle because he had seen it in traffic and it was a marked vehicle. It had their information on it. And at the time, his brother actually worked for the company, so he'll tell you that it was easy for him to ID it as a Baltimore Tank Lines vehicle. And what Mr. Irvin's gonna say about how this accident happened is that Mattawoman Beantown Road, as it comes down to Leonardtown Road, starts out with 2 through lanes, the left and the right lane, and they both go in the same direction. As it gets closer to Leonardtown Road, as you can see in the diagram, those lanes widen out, and what you get is you get 2 through lanes to the right and 2 left turn lanes, which are the 2 leftmost lanes. And as you can see, as it approaches the intersection where Leonardtown Road is, it adds another lane off to the right, but that we shouldn't hear much talking about that today. And Mr. Irvin's gonna describe to you how this accident took place, and what he's gonna tell you is basically this: if I don't drop it on the floor. This is working out real for me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try it this way. It's like I'm doing a video on what not to do during an opening statement. I'm going to have to apologize for that. I'm usually, actually, that's a lie. I'm always this clumsy. All right, let's try some literary practice. This is called Racing for Regular Joes. Ready? Here we go. At 7:30 a.m., a large group of us novices walked the cone-dotted parking lot, learning the course layout and getting a few handling tips. For example, follow the skid marks and look 1 cone ahead. A crucial piece of info: pay attention to the pointer cones laid sideways like arrows to flag turns. If you miss one, it's a DNF, did not finish. Next up, work the course. To keep entry fees low, all riders take turns picking up downed cones. I manned a 4-cone S-turn slalom. As the first cars raced by, I noticed a pattern. Accelerating too fast after the second cone led to skidding out at the third. I would not make that mistake. When my group's race time arrived, I heeded Lauren's last tip and pre-drove the course with an instructor. Matt Ailes, a runner-up in the 2015 Nationals with his BMW 3 Series, had never piloted a Prius before. His time of 62.017 seconds was slow for him, but scary for his passenger. Pointer cones flew by so fast that I couldn't judge which way they pointed. My processing speed couldn't keep up. Frazzled, intimidated, I got behind the wheel for my first lap and took a deep breath. I entered the corners slow, exited fast, slalomed through the S-curves cleanly, and finished in a steady 70.11. It was a good start. Then Matt ran over to the car. You DNF'd, he said. You missed the very first turn out of the start line. Ouch, I didn't even see it. After a more focused DNF free 69.636 on lap 2, Lauren walked up. Okay, now you're ready, she said. Think of 3 ways to improve. That was easy. 1. Jump off the starting line faster. 2. Speed up on the S turns. 3. Attack a hard right on the far side. For lap 3, I was a man with a plan, and the result showed it. Calm, composed, in control. I hit my spots perfectly. Time 65.389. Wow, a 4-second improvement. I balled my fist. Yes, adrenaline surged through my veins. The old Roy, the pre-Prius, Vaseline Roy, was back. I was on cloud 9, overcome by a euphoric wave of elation. Lap 4 was gonna be awesome. I was gonna break Matt's 62 seconds. I was gonna go sub 60, gonna start doing autocross every weekend. Lauren ran over. This is it. Think of 2 more things you can do, she said. Feather the brakes a tad into the turns to blast out faster, and that's all I got. No matter. Lap 4 will be one for the books. Vibrating with excitement, I floored it and missed the first pointer cone. I DNF'd in 2 seconds. Rattled, I drove on the wrong side of all the S turns and skidded wildly through the hard right to a tainted 66.342 finish. I was mad at first, then circumspect. Maybe the best thing that could have happened. For good reason. I'd worked hard to lose my need for speed, and this morning, for one shining, unforgettable moment, I'd gotten it back. That was enough for now. All right, let's get back to our opening statement. Ready? Here we go. What you're gonna see and what Mr. Urban's gonna tell you, and we realize that there's debate as to how this accident happened. You're gonna hear other testimony. This is what Mr. Urban's gonna say. What he's gonna tell you is that you can see that this is more or less a same section of the diagram you just looked at. It's just zoomed in a little bit, and what this portion is, and it's a little tough to see, but what it shows you is the portion of Mattawoman Beantown Road where the 2 turn lanes start to split off to the left side as it approaches Leonardtown Road, which would be up here. And Mr. Irvin's gonna tell you that as soon as the turn lanes came into being, that he got over to his left at a constant speed, the same speed he'd been going, and began proceeding up to the light. He's going to tell you that this is a trip that he had made thousands of times. He'd lived there for about 6 years when this happened. He'd been working up at Andrews. That was his duty station for the Navy Reserves pretty much that entire time, and combined with the periods of his reserve duty and his active duty where he was there all the time, literally he had done this over 1,500 times, and he always goes the same way, and he had an important reason that he always goes the same way, because he knows that to get to his house he has to make a right turn after he makes his left onto Leonardtown Road. So in order for him to do that, he's always in the rightmost of the two left turn lanes. You know, you've got a left hand left turn lane and a right hand left turn lane. I know that's confusing terminologies, but all the lawyers talked about it and we couldn't come up with a better way to tell you about these lanes. All right, we will stop there. That will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.